Hi, I'm Antonio Mora. In discussing Iran, one has to start from the premise that it poses a serious threat to the U.S., to American interests abroad, and to U.S. allies in the Middle East, including Israel. As I laid out in my last video, Iran's past is prelude to the present. And in analyzing what's happening now, we have to ask if the Trump administration's moves have improved or worsened matters. One thing is clear. Expecting the mullahs to become good citizens of the international community out of the goodness of their own hearts is almost as foolhardy as thinking the North Koreans will. That's not to say we shouldn't try. But bluster and threats that aren't backed up are guaranteed not to work. As David Ignatius wrote in the Washington Post, part of Trump's problem is that his unpredictability has now become so predictable, and that other nations are learning how to play the disruption game too. Trump's actions have also not helped the moderate Iranians. President Hassan Rouhani and Foreign Minister Javad Zarif are the most moderate leaders in the Islamic Republic since the Ayatollah Khomeini took over 40 years ago, even though that's not saying much. There's little doubt both have been involved in Iran's malign activities, they whitewash terror, and they sure have sounded like hardliners since the most recent conflict with the U.S. started to develop. In any case, they're only the democratic facade of an Islamic theocracy that is effectively an authoritarian dictatorship that's been led by the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei for the past 30 years. There are many reasons why he's called the supreme leader. The executive power, including the president, answers to him. He commands the armed forces and the judiciary. Anything that strengthens him and his fellow hardliners in the Iranian government over the moderates is a negative for the world and for Iranians who hope for democracy and better relations with the West. The whole point of President Trump withdrawing from the Iranian nuclear deal and reimposing sanctions was to exert maximum pressure that would force Iran to give a full accounting of its nuclear program, limit missile development, and withdraw support for terrorist groups. But Trump pulled out of the deal over the objections of some of his top advisors and of American allies in Europe. Those allies have continued to observe the terms of the agreement. I was not a big fan of the deal because it simply froze Iran's nuclear program, possibly just postponing the inevitable, and it provided the mullahs with hundreds of billions which could help finance anti-Western terrorists. Still, stopping the Iranians from becoming a nuclear power for more than a decade was a significant achievement. But Trump clearly underestimated Iran's resistance to his maximum pressure. What's happened since the Trump withdrawal has only made things worse. The Iranian economy has tanked, but instead of pushing Iran to negotiate, it has fought back, increasing its disruptive activities. In fact, the mullahs seem to be purposely goading Trump, shooting down a $130 million American spy drone, allegedly mining 6 oil tankers in the Gulf of Oman, and supporting the Houthi rebels in Yemen as they have fired missiles at civilian airports in Saudi Arabia, killing at least one and injuring dozens. Now, the International Atomic Energy Agency has confirmed that the Tehran government has exceeded the enriched uranium limit in the nuclear deal. Iran has also threatened to enrich uranium to 20%, which is most of the way to weapons-grade uranium. To his credit, Trump has not rushed into war. He stopped retaliatory attacks for the downing of the drone, but threatening Iran and then doing nothing also carries risks. Lack of credibility weakens deterrence. Look at the catastrophe in Syria after President Obama drew a red line and did nothing. Even so, Trump has threatened to obliterate Iran. Could the U.S. do it? Sure, if the armed forces let loose American air power and bomb the country. But at what costs in deaths of Iranian civilians and military? At what cost in American fatalities? Because Iran has significant air defenses. Trump has also said a war with Iran wouldn't last very long. Did he not learn the lesson from the U.S. wars in Iraq and Afghanistan? Iran is a much larger country and has a bigger population than both put together. It also has a far stronger military. Even if the fantasy of a short war came true, at what cost to the stability of the region? At what cost to Saudi Arabia, Syria, or Israel as Iran lashes out directly through its own forces or indirectly through Hezbollah and Yemeni Houthi proxies? As a candidate and as president, Trump has argued that military operations in the Middle East are too costly in lives and money while rarely achieving their political objectives. Has he changed his mind? Why? Trump's opponent in the general election will surely ask if we are better off now than before Trump took power. On Iran, barring some major change, the answer will be no. Tensions are greater, the region is more unstable, the U.S. has more forces in harm's way, Iran may be closer to a nuclear weapon, and the Iranian crisis has negatively impacted oil prices. Trump should have worked within the framework of the nuclear agreement with American allies, not against them. Any kind of war will not be good for anyone, including Trump's 2020 campaign and those who hope for change in Iran.